All right, welcome to middle adulthood. Yay! Let me go ahead and share my screen, which is there, and share. And we don't need that. And let me go ahead and let's do review as student. There we go. So here is the week 7 lesson on middle adulthood. So there are the learning outcomes for this particular lesson. We're going to, through the reading and the other materials, describe 3 physiological changes that occur during middle adulthood, talk about Erikson. Remember, we're done with Piaget now, and talking about Havinghurst's developmental tasks. So here again is your reading, focusing on relationships and work for the course hero reading. We went over the activity, the midlife crisis watch party, and the journaling was done in the overview video. If you have questions, you can go back and take a look at that. And then we looked at Erik Erikson earlier. We're going to go back and look at that again, and then also with Robert Havighurst. So when we talked about Erikson's theory for early adulthood, we talked about moving from adolescence into intimacy versus isolation. And then middle adulthood, we said probably begins, well, early adulthood is like 20s to 40s. So when we get to middle adulthood, that's roughly in your 40s, that's middle adulthood, and goes for another 20 years into the mid 60s. And that task is generativity versus stagnation. So generativity in terms of uh, contributing, right? Contributing to the development of other people, wanting to do things to help other people, being able to leave a positive, to have a positive impact and leave a positive impact on the world. Or stagnation, where you're just kind of stuck and have trouble meeting this task. You lose meaning. There's not a lot of meaning. And so connection with others is really important. And helping people, it just becomes really important. So that is Erik Erikson. So moving out of that intimacy piece into, I guess, kind of leaving a legacy might be another way to look at it. And then going back to Robert Havighurst, we're going to go down to the bottom of the page where there is actually the developmental periods. And we're going to focus on the, remember, for early adulthood, we talked about relationships, selecting a partner, marriage, starting a family, finding work, starting a career, being in your career, and then starting a family, right? Having civic responsibility, starting to take on some responsibilities in the community. So for middle age, we are going to look at the tasks that Havighurst has set out for the middle age adult, which are achieving adult civic and social responsibility. So we were getting started, we were taking it, and now we're actually achieving it and making it a part of our life in terms of generativity. Establishing and maintaining an economic standard of living. So hopefully we were able to start that as an early adult, and then we're going to establish it and maintain it as we come into our middle years. I think that's getting harder and harder, especially with the economy the way it is right now, to actually maintain a standard of living. I think it's just really, really more difficult these days. So a lot of anxiety and stress and depression related to that. Developing adult leisure time activities. So these adults are starting to get ready to retire, although probably later than usual. 65 has usually been known as a basic retirement age, but a lot of people are waiting till they're 70 or 72. You can still obviously sign up for Medicare. Go back and look in the week 1 and week 2 lecture on government influences. And then relating oneself to one's spouse as a person. So we were learning to live with the person. They talked about marriage, but it could just be a relationship, a long-term relationship. And so really relating to them as a person, especially and so these tasks are you reach these tasks by the end of that developmental stage. Some people reach it earlier than later, but that's really by the end of these stages, that's when you should have met these tasks. And so if you've had children, they've usually left the nest. They call that empty nesting. You're an empty nester. You could have we have one that are called boomerang children. They left, they went out on their own, but now they've come back to you because it's just really difficult to be on your own these days. But those are the tasks of middle age that the person should probably be more 40 to 60 if we're looking specifically at those ages. But that generativity piece and is really big, and not stagnating, not getting stuck or mired down in depression. Well, somebody's having a blended coffee. And so this lesson basically focuses on midlife crisis as well as menopause. And so midlife crisis, we've talked already about that a little bit in terms of, as Pascal says, to dips in satisfaction at different times in your life, generally around 40. I think it's because when you think about it, when you look at tasks, if you look at the generativity versus stagnation, if you haven't met those, if you're struggling to meet those developmental milestones, then that can lead to a dip in satisfaction because I'm not financially stable or I can't relate to my partner as a person. And those can bring about a midlife crisis. Like I need to achieve something. I need to have something to show for all this work that I've put in. And so oftentimes that can be seen as a midlife crisis. And so they can be different for men and women, or different people experience them different ways. To be aware of that. Menopause is something that the female middle adult goes through, and to understand that we talked about in the school age child and adolescent when the girl first gets her period or the boy has their first nocturnal emission, and they are then able to procreate, to have children. Well, now we come to the point in time in life when the woman is no longer able to have children. No longer the woman no longer has a period, then the eggs aren't being developed, and then there's nothing to fertilize, and so there's no resultant baby. You still could adopt or be foster parents. I think those are good things that you could do as well. Many families find that they are caring for their children's children or their grandchildren. So there's that as well. But menopause can be really tough for some women, and that you hear about hot flashes and body aches and memory loss and headaches and just all kinds of things. So menopause actually is the name for the time period once the menstruation has stopped. You're in perimenopause prior to that, and that can last years, like at 10 years sometimes. For other women, it's maybe a year from when you first notice signs that you might be in perimenopause. So there are a couple articles here and a video that you can watch. There's also different treatments. There's a lot of holistic treatments, herbal treatments, things that some women find helpful. Hormone therapy is another thing that has been very helpful. Yeah, hot flashes are no fun. So it might be interesting to, as you look through these videos, to kind of see things from the opposite point of view as to what adults in middle age are going through in terms of their life changing. And then let's go ahead. I am just, I think, going to download the PowerPoint and see what we come up with here. There we go, middle adulthood. Okay, so let's take a look at this one here. So middle age, that time when you finally get your head together and your body starts falling apart. Different pictures of people in that middle age range. Our objectives, Right, you went up. Objectives, and then the different definition of middle adulthood. We're going to consider that between 40 and 60. It kind of can be progressive. Some people think it's clear cut. Other people think it kind of rolls over. I kind of think it rolls over. I think at middle and late adulthood, things kind of the boundaries are kind of blurry for when you actually progress into the next stage. Okay, let's see. What do we have here? Goals and challenges of middle adulthood, based on these are based on Havinghurst. So new family rules, right? If you're done with the child rearing, then maybe you're a grandparent, or if you have boomerang children coming back, you have to live with them. Your relationships change. You're not in a honeymoon period or childbearing, child rearing, right? And so the relationship with your partner can change. Securing economic stability, positive self-image, continue with that. That can lead to the generativity, maintaining optimum cognitive functioning, which is difficult sometimes. We talked about empty nest syndrome when the kids move out and you get depressed because they've moved out. Now they come back, so that's not so bad. And so there can also, as you come into middle adulthood, be because these relationships are changing, oftentimes the couple has stayed together for the children or for other reasons. And so now in middle adulthood, you might see more divorce or separation. And also the bodies are aging. We determined that after age 30, the body goes downhill physically. And so there could be health problems, injuries, illnesses. So if we looked at the tasks, these are some of the tasks for middle adulthood. This list is a little bit longer than the one that we looked at in the previous article, but that civic and social responsibility, economic standards, assisting teenage children to become responsible and happy adults. So you can prepare them, you can do as much as you can, but a lot of it is up to the actual teenager, adolescent to be able to work through their own developmental stages. Developing adult leisure time activities, relating oneself to one's spouse as a person. We talked about that. And then accepting and adjusting to the physiologic changes of middle age, should be of middle age, because the body's really changing and not always for the best, although there are some people that age very well, very gracefully, very healthy, which is great. And then also adjusting to aging parents. There is a term that is called the sandwich generation, which happens in middle adulthood because that person who's say in their 50s, let's use 50 as an example, is caring for not only their aging parents as well as themselves, but also that teenager or that early adult and trying to help them navigate their developmental stages as well. And so again, going through some physical characteristics, you actually might get short, the fat kind of goes to different places, the bone density is less, decreased muscle tone. Now that is not to say that people that don't continue to do the exercise that they've been doing or eating healthy, they might not run into these changes till much later. Osteoporosis, weak bones, teeth fall out, teeth have problems, you need dentures at some point, or other dental work is often common, as well as vision changes, hearing changes, needing a hearing aid, needing to change your glasses prescription maybe to trifocals instead of bifocals. The skin loses elasticity, the hair thins and turns gray. Lots of different changes there. It might be difficult to taste things the way that you've done in the past. We talked about generativity, right, versus stagnation, depression, especially, and the effect of that on the spouse or partner. If it's very difficult, that can lead to the separation and divorce that we see in middle adulthood, in trying to continue with the generativity and not be so self-centered and stuck in places. So new family roles, right? The partnership has changed with the partner. We talked about empty nest, divorce, the parenting, grandparenting, that sandwich generation, which I believe is the next slide. Yes, it is. And so hopefully if you have a good relationship with your spouse, with your parents, your children, that will help it to be a more positive transition in caring for your children as well as your parents. And if you have, I think if you have siblings, I think that's a really important thing to talk, that all the siblings talk and figure out how they can each support each other as well as their parents, so that the burden doesn't fall on one particular sibling, which oftentimes that tends to happen. So careers, many times careers are starting to wind down by the time you're in your 60s. Although many people are working much longer time frame past retirement age into their 70s. Many people see themselves through their work. So is it a positive self-image? What do they look like? And then maybe looking at how can I bring my career with me as I age or as I get older? Is there some way to work from home or to run your own business, something like that, are ideas that people have. So midlife crisis, they'll say, you grieve your lost youth and missed opportunities. That's where you can get into the stagnation piece. And so the person may start to engage in behaviors that are not typical for them. And so the I like this little meme here, the women's midlife crisis, they run a marathon and date college boys, whereas the men's midlife crisis is buy a Corvette and date college girls. Trying to recapture the youth. Sexuality and reproductive health. We did talk a little bit about menopause, but sometimes the sexual needs get put on the back burner because of the career or the family. If there's divorce, then you're kind of single again, and so you have to start dating potentially again. There are hormonal changes that affect libido, as well as skin and ability to participate in intercourse. And then, the seven dwarves of menopause. This is very, very true. It's another hormonal stage. So I liken it to adolescent, where your teens are dealing with all these new hormones that are coming in. And so they're very, not itchy necessarily, but bitchy, sweaty, sleepy, forgetful, and psycho for sure. But now the hormones are changing in terms of you're losing the hormones. There's less hormones. And so it's this reversal of the hormones. And so that leads to problems. Another name for menopause, the change of life, the climacteric. And they say on average begins at 45 and ends at 55. The average beginning is 51. Perimenopause, we talked about, that's the beginning stages. And insomnia, hot flashes are terrible. Lots of complementary alternative therapy is helpful, and hormone replacement therapy is also, although it carries some risks, but is also somewhat popular. And so it depends, again, playing into that generativity and stagnation of your reproductive system is changing. You are changing as a person. So do you embrace that change, or do you mourn the loss of your reproductive ability? And that can lead to stagnation and depression. So to really understand these stages as a healthcare professional to be able to provide resources for your clients is very important. So for the men's health, they say no significant physical change. I would tend to maybe argue with that a little bit, but testosterone levels drop, the libido can drop, the midlife crisis. It's a lot of the same things that women face. And so their quote unquote climacteric or menopause is a gradual decline in the testosterone. You can do testosterone replacement therapy. There are injections and other things. There's a Total T. You see that commercial on TV all the time now. So there are ways to combat that. Cognitive development, mental ability and memory at peak performance. I think that's at the beginning of middle adulthood. I would give you that. As you get towards late adulthood, not so much. And although this says a concrete, pragmatic manner, you still can see the possibilities. Doesn't mean that we've gone back to concrete development. It's just a word that they're choosing to use. And then this is a time when a lot of people will go back or have a second, they'll have a second career, or they'll be like, well, I never finished high school. I want to get my high school diploma, different things like that. And so they go back to school, which I think is great. We talked about adult learning theory, which is andragogy versus the pedagogy. So there's a little slide on that. Different teaching techniques. We talked about that as well in early adulthood when we talked about the andragogy. And so moral development, I'll go back and make sure I have that in that section. I don't think I have it there. I'll go back and put that slide there for adult moral development in terms of universal principles, really looking at your own personal values and beliefs and looking to hopefully help other people, would be the universal principles stage. Nutrition for those in middle adulthood, keep those healthy eating patterns, limiting sodium, caffeine, and fats. The metabolism slows down. I think that's one of the saddest things in middle age is when the metabolism slows down and the weight, the fat gets redistributed. And so women get increases in fat in their waist and hips, and men get that, what you might want to call a beer belly, the abdominal girth increases, and the lower extremity, like the legs, get kind of skinny. They lose muscle mass. So for sure, men and women need calcium intake, and vitamin D intake is another important nutrient to have. We still need sleep and rest. And that one article was showing that Gen Xers, we are not getting enough sleep because of all the stress we're going through. And so naps are so helpful. I love taking naps. Naps are amazing. If you haven't tried napping, try napping. And if you're going to nap, the thing is, how long should you nap? And so this actually tells you, I also thought this was kind of interesting, how long to nap. And so I'm gonna make this a little bit bigger here so I can see it a little bit better, hopefully. So the power nap, that 10 to 20 minute, that's great to boost energy. And you don't get into like deep REM sleep, so you can wake up and get moving. The half hour or 30-minute nap is not the best thing, that you're kind of groggy when you wake up from that one. And then the hour nap is best to improve remembering facts, faces, names, because you kind of get, you go through a sleep cycle. And so you feel you're not as groggy, might be somewhat groggy when you wake up. And then the 90-minute nap, this is what they call a full cycle of sleep, that you go through the lighter and the deeper stages of sleep. And so typically avoids the sleep inertia. And so it's easier to wake up and get moving after that nap. I always love that explanation. All right, exercise. What are we going to do for exercise? So exercise is a great way to meet people, do walks on the beach, do water aerobics, walking, swimming, biking, all those kind of things. Make sure that you are healthy and it is safe for you to participate in exercise like that. Leisure, this is a time when, if you're going into retirement, which we'll talk about in late adulthood, that you have time to do some of these hobbies that you have thought of doing and haven't had the time to do: traveling, gardening, volunteering. Lots of volunteering going on. Or maybe there was something that you wanted to try, music or playing the guitar or something like that. And so now you have some time, you can do those things, you can look at that. And those activities can continue into late adulthood and old age. We still want middle-aged adults to be safe. So keeping in mind that they might be trying new things like riding motorcycles, wearing helmets and making sure that they've had training in how to ride a motorcycle. With vision and hearing loss, as the body's changing somewhat, there might be potential for more motor vehicle accidents. So to really be aware of that and let people know that that is potentially a possibility. We'll talk about that again in late adulthood. When do you take mom or dad's car keys away? That's really a difficult situation. There could also be issues in the workplace, at home, sometimes medications, they call it polypharmacy, that person generally in late adulthood, but could also be middle adulthood, is taking so many medications. You take one medication, it makes you nauseous, you get a stomach ache, and so then you take another medication to make it so that you're not nauseous anymore, and you just end up taking all these medications, which can take a toll on the individual and can lead to unsafe situations. And also in terms of remembering when to take the medication, how to take it, what to take it with or without. Those are all important things. And then safety in the workplace is always important. Yeah, just it's like kind of like baby proofing, more into late adulthood, but in terms of like no throw rugs, and you want to make sure that you have light switches that are accessible. There's lamps and lighting so people can see where they're going and what they're doing, those kind of things. So my theory is that you get to early adulthood and then you start going back because you get middle adulthood and adolescence are very I think similar, right? And you kind of go backwards from there. That's my theory anyway. um Health promotion, right? We want a healthy lifestyle, diet, weight management, exercise, and continuing to go to the doctor. You think that, well, the older people start going more often. Well, there are more screenings or screenings that are happening, like your colonoscopy, and mammograms and things like that. But it is important to have a good relationship with primary care physician. So there goes access and economic stability, being able to afford and get to those doctor's appointments. So vision, different eye disorders, glaucoma, macular degeneration, cataracts. My husband actually just had cataract surgery and he could not believe how much better his vision improved. He's waiting to get his other eye done at the end of this month, and then he can get a new reading glasses prescription. So he's waiting on that, but he's really had to adjust to that. And so sometimes if it's a parent or a friend or something, they'll say little things, oh, I can't see that, or that looks blurry. So being aware and listening to what people say, doing that active listening to ask the right questions and find out, are they having trouble, or looking at the eyes and saying, gosh, your eye looks kind of cloudy or glassy. Are you able to see? Or if somebody keeps saying, what, huh, what, with their hearing, maybe they need to have their hearing evaluated and maybe get a hearing aid. Nobody wants to get trifocals and hearing aids, but if it's promoting safety, then that's probably a good thing. Health concerns, things that we have been screening for across the lifespan, the cholesterol, obesity, hypertension. We just mentioned the vision issues and having a colonoscopy. Breast disease, fibrocystic breast disease. There's a lot of fat tissue in there, cysts of fat tissue, benign prostatic hypertrophy, where the man's prostate becomes enlarged and makes it difficult for the male to urinate. And so there are procedures that can be done to help with that. So there are a few things, as the body's starting to kind of break down a little bit, there are specific health issues specific to middle adulthood. And then I believe our last slide is that's a wrap, which goes back to the objectives. So I am going to stop sharing. I will take a look at Kohlberg and make sure that Kohlberg, I don't know what is Jack's like driving me nuts, crazy. I don't know what's going on. I'll make sure that the Kohlberg is on there so that you can look at Kohlberg and the post-conventional morality. So that is it for middle adulthood. I will see you in late adulthood.